Hyperdrive Hockey is brought to you by the Game Over Network. Make sure to follow us on YouTube at Game Over Network and catch Hyperdrive Hockey in audio format on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other good streaming platform. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network. My name is Maxime Vanout alongside Kevin Laramé. I hope you're having a good week. Only a few games left before the Four Nations face-off, who could end up, as somebody put it on social media that I thought was quite funny, the No Nation face-off, because it's falling like flies right now on the ice out there. Kevin Laramé, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. You know, you're right. A lot of injuries, and it was going to be expected. But, you know, as much as we talked about how this tournament is, we're not hyped for it and all that, the more we're getting closer, the more like, well, I'm intrigued. I want to see a couple of good games, and, you know, that's what it's going to be. A couple of good games, I think we're going to see.
Yeah. I've been hired to work a TV show on, on the network you work, TVA Sports, to do a segment before Wednesday's game. So I think that's Finland. It's Canada-Finland or Canada-Sweden. I don't remember which one. Anyways, and so it's at Bell Center. So it's because it's the official broadcaster. It's a talk show for those of you who are not familiar with the
I'll
TV
be working
sport.
on that show too. So
we'll beautiful. So might see each other there. So it's at Bell Center. And so the producer of the show writes to me, asks me if I can do that. I'm replacing someone. I'm like, yeah, sure. Say, okay, so I'll have a media accreditation for you at Bell Center. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So I didn't dare to ask, but I'm like, okay, is it just for pregame? Can I stay after? Because if I can stay after, if I did, it's for science, it's for work. Well, yeah. If I didn't pay for it, maybe I may stay. I don't know.
Exactly. And by the way, just so you know, if you're there for the pregame with your credentials, you can stay. You're there already. So there you go.
So yeah, that might be it. But here's the thing. You know what? Like just before, because that's our story today. It's falling like flies. That's our story today. But just before, let me tell you about Inshu Bijou, which is our sponsor here, our partner at Hyperdrive Hockey. It's a delightfully witchy, gut, and glam jewelry store making handcrafted art that varies from subtle silver and gold pieces to glamorous bespoke pieces. Inshu is more than just a company. They've built a community through their advocacy and welcoming attitude that has made them an institution in Montreal. It's located in the historic Château Saint-Ambroise, so drop by 4000 Rue Saint-Ambroise, Suite 278, and say hi to Astrid and the Wicked team, or head over to inshubijou.com and enhance your style today. So yeah, Four Nations face-off, falling like flies. So here's the thing. Of course, the biggest, well, I would say the two biggest, but the biggest story, because it's Gary Bettman's worst nightmare or second worst nightmare, maybe top night. Sometimes at shows they do co-headline.
Yeah.
So like, of course, one goes after the other, but they have the same set length and they're co-headlining. So probably the co-headline of Gary Bettman's worst nightmare would have been Connor McDavid and or Sidney Crosby getting injured. And Sidney Crosby suffered an upper body injury. He came back into the game. That was on Tuesday night, but then missed practice on Wednesday for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we're hearing that it is an upper body injury. And so now suddenly the National Hockey League is holding its breath because let's be real. No matter what you think of Team Canada's roster, no matter if you're like me and Kev and you're not really sold on that tourney, you are lying. You are straight up lying if you do not admit that you are going to be curious and at the very least one point in the tournament turn on the TV to see together for the very first time on Team Canada, Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid, because this should have been one of the biggest duo. It would have been a duo in 2018. It would have been a duo in 2022. You would have had the end of the prime of Crosby alongside the Well, technically, Connor McDavid's career has been his prime so far.
Well,
so
he's in his
Connor
prime
McDavid,
still,
just Connor McDavid. And now we were going to see it, and let's be real. old man Sidney Crosby is still better than 90% of the players in the league. So
yeah.
it's still pretty exciting. So it was the reason to see these two alongside Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar on the power play together. Exactly. And so now suddenly everybody in Canada who's actually caring about this tournament, but mostly Gary Bettman and the executives are holding their breath and hoping Sidney Crosby will be fine for that tourney.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, let's just talk about the facts first. He did get out of the game on Tuesday. It does look like not just an upper body injury, but somewhere around the arm or the shoulder area. It's kind of like he got stuck in between two players. Like, okay. At first, from far away, I thought it was the head. I was like, oh, no.
Oh, really?
Well, from depending on the angle I saw the first one, I was like, I hope it's not a hit to the head. I hope it's not like the old demons that he had that are coming back. But no, it's an upper body injury, probably a shoulder or an arm, and hopefully it's just precautionary measure to make sure he's okay. Let's face it, Pittsburgh is not close to a playoff spot. They're 7 points away as we speak, and they're not trending in the right direction. So if you're Pittsburgh, you're already missing Malkin anyways. You probably can deal without Crosby right now. Like, okay, just try to be okay for that tournament because you're representing us. You're going to bring joy to our fans vicariously through Canada. So maybe that's the way you can do it. But no, it is...
That's an interesting take.
It is quite, I would say, nerve-wracking, like you mentioned, for Gary Bettman, for Team Canada. You still have, like, let's face it, McDavid, Nathan McKinnon. You still have, like, Cale Makar. You still have top players. Crosby was not necessarily going to be a top player, but it's that narrative that we were always robbed of the McDavid and Crosby potential. And I would add McKinnon because they're good friends, McKinnon and Crosby. And that could have been, like, an amazing power play, those three with Cale Makar and the blue line. But that's what we hope to see. But right now, it's time to hold your breath.
Yeah, because so the NHL.com team did a projected lineup. And honestly, I've been saying it. I've been saying it here on this podcast and every freaking platform that I have. The one thing I want to see actually two things. There are two things I want to see in this tourney. I want to see Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon on the line. Not just on the power play. I don't care that they're all center. They brought in a gazillion center. Team Canada always do this. It's the right thing to do, by the way. It's the one thing I agree with. Bring in 1,000 center, put some on the wings, and you're going to be good to go. Because everybody knows that centers can just go ahead and play on you're just dumbing down what they have to do, you know. So that's why centers can play wing and not vice versa necessarily. So you probably put Crosby in the face-off circle because he's the best of the three. And then during play, you know, he played on the wing technically. Whatever. Just put him on a line together. That's the one thing I wanted to see. And it is what the team at NHL.com, projected, Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon. But here's the thing, Kev. I have to be honest with you. For all the, maybe not the hate's a bit of a strong word, but the criticism we've had of that roster since it's been announced back in December. I'm taking off Sidney Crosby. Let's say, for argument's sake, let's say Sidney Crosby's injured and we're taking him off. I am looking at this team, and of course, it has Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, and Cale Makar. Let's be real. To me, these are three of the four best players in the NHL. Actually, to me, these are the three best players in the NHL, if I'm completely honest. They are my top three. But beyond that, it's really now, for me, looking at this, and I'm like, this is not a deep Team Canada's team.
No,
Team Canada used to be so freaking deep, and it is not a deep Team Canada team. It is a Canada team that is just incredibly loaded up front in star power. And I mean, like, it has Sam Reinhart and Mitch Marner, and almost every other hockey nation on the planet, hockey nation, would take that team and be like, yep, go like deep. It's just compared to what it used to be. It really isn't that deep of a team to me. And I would seriously wonder suddenly, like, not only if they're not favorite, but if they're a top two team in that tournament without Crosby. But again, it's so tough to see of a team that has McKinnon, McDavid in the car.
No, but you're right. And it's also by choices, right? Because of the choices of the GM of the team by not picking players like Mark Scheifele. And it's the one that stands out to me. But there's a couple other ones that could have made this team deeper that he chose to to bring players that would accept a role on the fourth line, the Travis Konechny, the Sam Bennett. Players that a few weeks ago, well, Sam Bennett played better, but a few weeks ago, Sam Bennett was like a lot of games without points, like over 10. And so those choices of bringing the Konechnys and the Bennetts of this world were to the detriment of players like Mark Scheifele, and there's others in the NHL right now, Canadian players that could have been brought to this team, but the choice of, no, we already have a lot of the offensive talent, let's build a balanced roster, to me makes no sense when you get into a tournament like this, when you know you're going to win games 6-4. It's not going to be Carey Price in 2014 in Sochi winning games 1-0 for Canada, right? It's going to be a different type of tournament. So to me, that's just a philosophical choices of this roster build. And you're just a couple of injuries away from having not as top heavy and then kind of just a regular roster.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. Who knows? Maybe. So, do you remember the 2004 World Cup? I remember Vincent Lecavalier initially didn't make the team. He ended up on it. I don't remember, though, if it was because of injuries or whatever, because it was a preseason tournament, kind of like the 2016 World Cup. So, I'm not quite sure if it was just change of heart or injuries or whatever, but he ended up on that team, and he was MVP of the tournament. And also, Martin Saint-Louis wasn't initially chosen to go to Sochi back in 2014. Some alleges that it was the start of the rift between him and Stevie Y, by the way, which, quite frankly, I don't think it was. But that's for a whole other discussion. Anyways, they ended up bringing Martin Saint-Louis to the team. So who knows? Maybe they will fix that with a highly offensive player if Sidney Crosby misses the tournament. We are far from there, though. What's interesting, Kev, is you just said that anyways, yeah, for the Pittsburgh Penguins this year, well, unless they have a surprising turn of event, they're going to miss the playoffs for a third year in a row. We can't say the same thing of the Canucks right now, who are holding their breath.
Yeah.
Team USA, of course, is holding their breath because they want Quinn Hughes on that team, but the Vancouver Canucks are the one holding their breath for Quinn Hughes. He has missed the last 2 games for the Canucks. He did not go to San Jose. He did not go with the team. The Vancouver Canucks are playing the San Jose Sharks tonight, so it will be a 3rd game in a row miss for Vancouver Canucks captain Quinn Hughes. Of course, the Vancouver Canucks have made moves. By the way, we'll talk about it in a second, but they've prolonged Marcus Peterson to a contract. They, in the absence of Quinn Hughes, they have managed to get 3 points out of 4 games, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Both of these games were on home ice, so a loss in overtime to the Detroit Red Wings on Sunday, and they've blanked the Avalanche 3-0 on home ice too on Tuesday. But long term, that would really hurt the Vancouver Canucks. And if I am the Canucks, I'm going to be honest with you. If there's even just a little slight of discomfort for Quinn Hughes, I am pleading him not to go. I am pleading to him to take those, 2 weeks? So the last game of the Canucks is on Saturday. That's the 8th against the Leafs. And they're playing again on the 22nd against the Golden Knights. So that's almost 2 full weeks. My dear Captain Quinn Hughes, take those 2 weeks off and make sure you are fully healed, because we don't only need you for a playoff push, we need you to carry us into that. But you're not only the captain, you're by far our best player. You won the Norris Trophy last year, and somehow you're going for an encore this year. You're playing even better. You are the one true bright light this year, keeping the Canucks afloat. If you are not if you are 90%, don't go to the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah, they're dependent on Quinn Hughes. Offensively speaking, earlier this year, there was one moment when he received a puck in the face, and he left the first period for like 17 minutes of the 20. And he only had 3 minutes of possession in offensive zone is when he came back. And that is really indicative of a team that needs Quinn Hughes. One thing, though, that we might need to just make sure is the game against the Red Wing on Sunday, he was game time decision, okay? And during the warm-up, he practiced a lot, and there was 2 long stint of conversation between himself and the trainers while the warm-up were happening. And then he was talking, and eventually the decision was taken to not make him play that game. And then he was just not playing in the second one against Avalanche. And then you got already San Jose. So I think that it's a precautionary measure already for the last two games, if we include the latest one they're going to play tonight or whenever you're listening to this, the one against San Jose. So I think the one against the Red Wing is the one moment you could be like, okay, you don't feel 100%. You still feel a little something. It looks like a lower body injury. We don't know, but it looks like a groin or something in that area. It's skating-wise. That's what he was trying to do. That's when he was really pushing to skate, to turn. So that screams lower body injury to me. And we'll see how he gets better over the next few days. As much as I agree with you for himself and for the Canucks especially, you don't want him to play for Team USA. For his, not legacy, because he's still like 18 years old. I'm exaggerating. He's very young. But for his international...
He's like 25, I think.
Yeah. For his international development, this tournament is an interesting aspect. For his type of play, offensive defenseman that has eyes all around his head, that can see anybody on the ice. That type of tournament could actually be good for his confidence, just to put in perspective, because he could be not only the best player of the Canucks, one of the best defensemen, if not the best offensive defenseman this year, he could be miles ahead of other ones. And that's the type of tournament where you assess yourself against the other ones. You'd be like, you know what? I just played against the best, and I'm the best of the best. And that may be what Quinn Hughes is. He's the best Hughes out of all the three brothers. He's the best defenseman, the best player, and the best asset the Vancouver Canucks have. So, yes, I think it's important if he's not 100% that he doesn't play. But I also think for the Vancouver Canucks, you don't want to be known as a team that tells their superstar not to go get the candy if he's okay to get the candy.
But that's interesting. That is actually quite interesting. And this is where, personally, my whole perspective on that tournament comes in. If it was the Olympics, that is a big candy. That is the candy. For me, that would be a gigantic ass Kit Kat. I'm a chocolate guy. I'm not a big candy guy. I'm a chocolate guy. So that would be the thing, that big Kit Kat. The Four Nations, so if this was next year, exactly this scenario next year for the Olympics, I do not have the same take on it. Because it's the Olympics, because I understand the dream, because I understand what it represents, and all of that. The Four Nations ain't that, and because of that, that's why I am so strongly against Quinn Hughes going to that tournament if he is not at 100%. If this was the Olympics, I would lean with you, and I would be like, yeah, you know what? I understand the guy wants to go. But it's called a face-off. It's not even... what the heck is a face-off anyway?
No, yeah, it's true. But I think it also serves as like an appetizer for the upcoming Olympics. So maybe that's where, but no, I agree with you. I think that, but that's where I think that he's going to be okay to play is because the whole game time decision a couple of games ago.
Yeah.
And the last ones have already been precautionary measures in my mind.
And now you talked about appetizer, and now all of a sudden I'm thinking of Super Bowl Sunday. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Let's go across other news across the planet, hockey. And we're gonna stick in Vancouver actually, but first let's switch things up. Looking for a way to make awesome memories with your friends? Want to take some promotional pictures for your business? Check out Le Saint Motel in Montreal Southwest. It's an amazing selfie studio. It's located in Montreal historic Château Saint-Ambroise. It boasts more than 12 unique decors for you to enjoy and make memories. Hop in their iconic heart-shaped ball pit or transport yourself back in time to Expo 67. Le Saint Motel can also come to you with mobile decor setups available for rent and events, including setup and takedown. So head over to lesaintmotel.com and check out their amazing decors. I said we were going to stick in Vancouver. That's because Marcus Peterson is staying put. A long contract for Marcus Peterson with the Vancouver Canucks. We talked for a long time about how the Vancouver Canucks were looking for help on left D to collegiate Quinn Hughes, who we just talked about. And I do think it is a good contract for the Canucks. I think Marcus Peterson is a good depth defenseman. 6 years, $5.5 million a year. So it looks like a solid deal to me. I could understand Vancouver Canucks fans to be a little skeptical after what we talked about in our last episode, Kev, the fact that all of their free agents from last summer were traded already. But I do think that you have the data on Marcus Peterson. I do think he is a good depth, or at the very least, second pair defenseman. And I think it's a good move for the Canucks, securing the men at a very decent price tag for the next 6 years. As I said, the goal is to make sure that Quinn Hughes doesn't have to play 30 minutes a night, and I think that's a good step in the right direction.
I have to agree, and that's 2 out of 3 Petersons that are signed long term now. And,
yes, please sign them all. Sign them all.
Well, the third one, still fringe player, right? The second Elias, let's call it that way. Or they call him over there, it's DPD, because he's the defenseman, and he's Peterson. So the defenseman Peterson could be maybe let's say not the best of the 3. We all know who's the first one, and Marcus might be second. But no, it's when you make a trade and you're ready to sign the player you trade for, it's a vindication. It's almost a validation of, you know what, we've seen in a couple games what we expected, and this is going to help us going forward. So for Vancouver, this is a step in the right direction when you admitted that by trading away all the players you signed in the summer, you admitted that you made mistakes. And now with JT Miller gone, they're admitting that they made mistakes over the last few months, and it's a bit of a clean slate. We'll see on the ice how the victories rack over the next few weeks, but at least in the offices, it feels like it's a clean slate. It feels like it's almost a new team.
I do think it's quite funny that they basically said to Elias Peterson, first of his name, well, you were here, so you're going to stay Peterson on your jersey. Elias Peterson 2 is E. Peterson, and then Marcus Peterson is M. Peterson.
Yep.
Which I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not going to last long on this because that's just me nerding out and pointing some stuff that probably nobody cares about, but you have a number underneath. I always thought that was funny.
Exactly.
You have a number. The New York Yankees don't even have names on their jersey.
So wouldn't it be a problem?
I played with my brother when we were younger, and we were both just Venut on the back of our jersey. Well, that was quite easy. I was a goalie and he was a player, so that was the most easy to differentiate. But, unless you're the Sedin, who were completely, even with the numbers, sometimes you could, write the full damn name, which is something I think is quite hilarious in soccer, by the way. I always thought it was the coolest thing ever that Sergio Ramos had the whole thing on the back of his jersey. I was like, man, if I had a short name, I'd go for it.
Exactly. Or just write, just Henrik. Or just Daniel for the Sedin back in the day, but no, it's interesting.
Oh my God, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, because they're both Sedins. We know that. Just one is Henrik, one is Daniel.
Oh, that's the NBA a few years back, for a few games, authorized the players to have their nickname on the back of their jersey. I thought that was a bit extreme for just a cool, a little fun one weekend that can be cool. Of course, LeBron James had King and all of that. So I wouldn't go there. But you know what? Have Henrik Lundqvist have just Henrik. We call him like that anyways.
King Henrik. King Henrik. Yeah, or you could go all the way back to the early 2000s, like the XFL. You could write whatever you want.
That's true.
We all remember He Hates Me, of course, famously player.
I got to be honest with you. I think that in the day and age of... I understand for the referees and all that, but they have numbers even at the top of their helmet.
No, exactly. Nowadays. There's no reason.
In this day and age of full 4K, even 8K televisions, I do think that, let's say, a team like the Montreal Canadiens, I would love the Habs to go full New York Yankees on the red jersey and have no name on the back. Name? I think it looks so cool. Hey. No names on the back looks so cool. And if I stand correct, Canucks fan in the comments, let me know. I'm pretty sure I stand correct. The Canucks are maybe the only team, but the Canucks did this in one of the vintage night in the 2000s. I don't remember exactly when, but they did do one of their old school jerseys and they put no names on the back once.
I think
which I
it
thought was pretty cool.
because it was the V jersey. There's just, you can't see the name anyways. So maybe, but it brings back the famous quote: "You play from the name in the front, and not the name in the back of your jersey."
Yeah. Yeah. I had a coach when I was younger. So, when you play double letters in elite hockey and stuff, so you have your name on the back. And later in high school, I had a coach who said, like, nope, no names on the back for us this year. We're a bunch of warriors and stuff like that. He didn't even want letters. And I think the league forced him to, at the very least, have a captain, just to make sure the refs knew who to talk to. And he refused. He refused all year to call him captain. He was chief warrior.
It's the same. But yeah,
that was quite funny. That was actually quite funny. A big story for fans in Montreal, Calgary. And if you're listening in Detroit, and you know what? That one I didn't see coming, Toronto. So according to Kevin Weeks, the Canadiens, Flames, Red Wings, and Leafs are in on Dylan Cozens. So, of course, Dylan Cozens, top 10 pick back in 2019, 23-year-old, big right shot centerman for the Buffalo Sabres, apparently is on the block. Dylan Cozens had what it seemed to be a breakout season 2 years ago when he scored over 30 goals at close to 70 points for the Sabres. Unfortunately, since then, he has not only stagnated, there's been a bit of a regression in his play. Because it is Buffalo, who have been, to stay polite, bad for the past more than a decade now, almost 2 decades. A lot of players, Sam Reinhart, Brandon Montour, left Buffalo and exploded elsewhere. You can even add Lindesoul, Mark, to this. To those who want to say Ryan O'Reilly and Jack Eichel, exactly. I don't agree. They were already good in Buffalo. They were just not acknowledged as winners. Well, but they were already good in Buffalo.
Exactly. Like Jack Eichel had his best season before this year in Buffalo in 27-18. Yeah. So no.
Apart from his rookie season, he was this close to a point-per-game player in every season. So he was already good.
I agree with you, and we forget about Sam Reinhart. Imagine the team Buffalo would have had right now if they would have kept all these players, and Dylan Cozens just going to be added to the list. Just another one that Buffalo could have. What could have been? That's the Buffalo mentality.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, Canadian Flames, Leafs, Red Wings. Interested, according to Kevin Weeks. Canadiens, of course, we know this. We're both in Montreal. We've heard about it for a long time. My take on this is, from purely a Canadiens perspective, we're going to do the other teams in a minute. I'm not convinced, because when he had that season, Dylan Cozens signed a long-term contract worth $7 million a year. If he had stayed a 60 to 70 point player, that would have been tremendous. Well, he would not be on the block at the moment. $7 million a year. I think it's another trade for another project for the Habs if they do this, one that is locked for a lot of money. And after Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook not really fulfilling what Quinn Hughes had in mind so far, I am not convinced of another project. But I do like the player, that said. If it wasn't for the contract, I do like the player. That is Dylan Cozens. Interesting to see the Flames there. I do see a fit in Calgary. We've talked about it, Kev. We've talked about how the Calgary Flames defense and especially goaltending has been tremendous this year. They are still in the playoff spot at the moment we are speaking. And I do think this is an acquisition that could help their group of forward. And I do think, the Flames are in an interesting territory. They have been in an interesting territory since, the previous guard of the Tkachuk, Lindholm, Gaudreau, may he rest in peace, and all of that left. They tried the famous reset, and now they have Kadri, they have Huberdeau, they have Mackenzie Weegar. So they're kind of a middle-of-the-pack team. And I do think that an acquisition like Dylan Cozens, if he can come into Calgary, he's a guy who's from the Northwest. He's from Yukon. The Northwest Territory or Yukon? I think he's from the Yukon. I'm going to have to check that because I'm not sure anymore. Anyways, he's from the Northwest. I do see a fit. I see a fit in Calgary for Dylan Cozens, to be quite honest with you. And I do think it would be quite an interesting acquisition. The Red Wings, of course, are not where they want to be in their rebuilding process. I see a fit too. But help me on that, Kev, because you're much smarter than me. Why the heck would the Leafs trade for Dylan Cozens?
I think it would be to round the team up, bring some grit, bring a player that does not necessarily have the offensive pressure to play because there's other players that have that role. You have the Matthews, the Marner, the Nylander, but that can break out and can maybe bring a physical presence because he's big. That shot that you mentioned, but also could help make the second or third line a bit better. That's probably the only reason I would think.
You know, I fully expect Mitch Marner to re-sign in Toronto, especially since we've learned about the cap going up by $1 gazillion. And that was the thing that came across my mind was the only thing I feel like I can see is if the Toronto Maple Leafs go full Colorado Avalanche, they think they're not going to re-sign Marner, but that would be a much, much bigger blockbuster than Dylan Cozens. And also, even though the Buffalo Sabres are bad, I do not see the Toronto Maple Leaf trading Mitch Marner with such a close rival. And I am looking up right now to make sure, but I'm pretty damn sure Mitch Marner could block that trade anyway. He has a no movement clause. He cannot be traded, sent to the minors, or he has a full-on no movement clause. So that makes absolutely no sense. So yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I guess that when I see Toronto, what I have on my mind is not help down the middle. But you know what? You've said it. He is a big body player. He is a very interesting
Well, it's maybe
player.
the post-Tavares plan too, right? You need
Interesting.
Because Tavares, maybe it's his
Valid
last year,
point.
so maybe it's for the future for that.
You know what? That is a very, very valid point that you are making. A quite interesting stat. Patrick Kane entered the record book as the shootout king of the NHL. So 53 goals in the shootout for Patrick Kane. And I do not know why I was surprised to see that the previous record holder was, well, his partner in crime for so many years in Chicago, Jonathan Toews. I don't know why I'm surprised because, of course, like many hockey fans from my generation, I have burnt in my mind Jonathan Toews' performance at the World Juniors all the way back in, I think it was 2007, when Team Canada beat the USA in the semifinal, and Jonathan Toews went a gazillion time in the shootout to propel Team Canada to the gold medal game. So Patrick Kane, now the best goal scorer in the shootout history of the NHL, which is interesting to me is to see TJ Oshie there because...
Well, that's another
the other
player.
players.
Exactly. That's another player used to go all the time in the juniors when to.
Exactly. But the thing is, when you look, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Sidney Crosby, Andrzej Kopitar, bona fide superstars, some of the best players in the league. I have absolutely nothing against TJ Oshie, but he is kind of like a shootout specialist.
Yes, for sure. He is for sure. That's what we associate him with. We're like, okay,
Exactly.
the guy who can do whatever he wants in the shootout, but when it's a 30 minutes in the middle of a game, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, his performance in the Olympics is, probably a historic moment for USA hockey fans back in the last time the USA, well, not the USA, the NHL went to the Olympics. Just a quick word to end on Ryan Hartman, who's appealing his 10-game suspension for slamming Tim Stutzle. That was a very disgusting move by Ryan Hartman on the young Ottawa Senators centerman. If you have not seen it, at the face of Hartman basically slammed Stutzle's head.
It looked like
to
a wrestling
the
move.
ice.
It almost looked like a DDT, straight up, down on the ice, face up. It was disgusting.
If the suspension isn't reduced, it would be the longest suspension since Tom Wilson's 20-game back in 2018. Here's the thing with it. I was glad to see the NHL put their big pants on and suspended him for 10 games. But to me, again, this just lacks the complete... This shows the lack of regularity in the process for the NHL. Because when they said 10 games, I was like, yep, perfect. But the thing is, if this is 10 game, I do believe that there are a lot of other things that have happened in the NHL this year that deserve maybe not as much, maybe not as many games, but that deserve longer suspension. Of course, Ryan Hartman, not the biggest name, plays for the Minnesota Wild. It is much easier to make an example out of him than a superstar. But I do hope the NHL hold on and keeps the suspension, because I do think it was a very, very disgusting move by Ryan Hartman on Tim Stutzle.
No, for sure. It was.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Put me commissioner right now and send me the big check, Gary. Thank you, everyone, for joining in today again on this episode of Hyperdrive Hockey. If you want to support the Game Over Network, make sure to look up our Patreon. You can also head over to thegameovernetwork.com for any type of goodies, which can be a t-shirt, can be a mug, whatever, and you will help a young network hiring 30 young journalists and analysts across the country. Have a great Super Bowl weekend. Kev, I'm doing something special this weekend.
You are?
Yeah, I actually completely surprised my girlfriend when I told her I'm going to invite over some friends. She was like,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
you're the type of, because she knows that I'm the type of guy who watches his Super Bowl completely focused.
Me
Just
too.
a little bit of chicken wings, completely like I'm a football guy. I want to watch the game for what it is. And you know what? This year I said, hey, I want to cook my own homemade pizza.
Wow.
I'm going to cook my own homemade wings, and I'm going to host my friend. So I'm doing it. This Sunday, I'm hosting my friends, a small bunch, because I still want to be completely focused on the game. I'm going to be honest. I still want to be focused on the game. But I'm hosting friends for the very first time in my life, hosting friends for the Super Bowl. So there you have it.
My son is 2 years and 3 months, so this is his first Super Bowl. So I'm gonna make sure.
Really?
I'm gonna make sure to have a whole lot of food that he never tried before, that he can try. Like,
Beautiful.
and just to make sure that he enjoys it. And I'll be like, son, Arthur, you're watching football with Daddy. I don't care if you don't like it. You're gonna watch football with Daddy. It's our first Super Bowl together.
And there you have it. I need to get myself one of those kids. That's how it rolls.
Careful what you ask for, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. Who knows? And that will be for another discussion around a beer and not around a mic. Kevin Laramie, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And we'll talk to you on the next episode of Hyperdrive Hockey. Have a great hockey weekend. Have a great Super Bowl weekend for those who watch it. Talk to you later.